Hey guys, welcome out to another interview podcast with Kyle Luebbe running for Miller Township Trustee. I think you're actually the first person I've interviewed for doing a trustee interview.
That's this one's important. It's
So
worth coming out.
this is a first for me as well. Is this your first podcast?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Cool.
it is. Yeah.
So this is two guys and a third guy, or whoever happens to be on the other side of the camera, sitting around a table, just chit chatting.
All right.
Okay. And so when I first got involved, like a couple years ago, I noticed a big vacuum, so to speak, in local government. That there wasn't a platform. Facebook's not a platform. It's just a place where there's a lot of drama.
Okay.
But there wasn't a platform where people could get together and actually hash out the issues. It was just, well, so-and-so's a good guy, or she's really, really good. I went to school with her. Or, well, our families go way back. That has nothing to do with said person running for said position and what are the issues.
Right.
So then whenever I go to the polls and vote, like, I don't know what I'm voting for. I'm just like, oh yeah, so-and-so's good. I wonder what that position is they're running for. No idea. And it was just, I don't call it a pet peeve of mine or a big irritation. I was like, all right, well, let's grab my stupid little cell phone. I think the first podcast I did was...
Make your own platform.
Yeah, it literally was. And I think one of the first ones I did was with Commissioner Bischoff. And I went up to his shop. We didn't even have these fancy... These are like $200 mic setup.
It's pretty fancy.
Yeah. These muffle the noise out. And literally, I'm in his echoey shop with concrete floors, and there's Hisense and side-by-sides behind. And we've got the stupid cell phone there. And I think it was my old work cell phone, which was my wife's old phone, because I'm a conservative, and if you need a new phone, just use your old wife.
That's
so
right.
It's pink, and it's got the glitter. So I had my phone. No, so if you look at the camera, they've got this dumb little cell phone with the pink glittery on it, and that's what I was recording my first podcast with.
You gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, you gotta start someplace.
Just like this podcast.
Just like this podcast. So, but Township Trustee, this is the first one I'm doing as well. So anyway, what I typically like to do is imagine the three of us, the camera included, are sitting around, and you stop over, you're my neighbor, you stop over, and my buddy's here. He's like, and I say, hey, Kyle's running for Miller Township Trustee. And my buddy goes, oh, really? Well, tell me about yourself. And people just getting to know each other.
Right.
So that's usually where I start with somebody. Born, raised, what's your background? Who is Kyle Luebbe?
Born and raised in Bright, Indiana. Graduated from East Central, went off to Indiana State. Never really wanted to move anywhere else. Always wanted to come back to Bright. I loved Bright growing up. I still love it. I like being in a little town. I like everybody knowing everybody's names. And I knew that when I eventually started a family and went to raise kids, I wanted to raise them in Bright because I had a great childhood there, and I want them to experience what I experienced.
What did your parents do growing up?
My dad was actually a formulator at Procter & Gamble. He worked in the antiperspirant deodorant division.
No way.
At P&G. Yeah, he started off. So my dad was like a rocket.
That's the ultimate, dad corporate job.
Yes.
My dad makes deodorant.
Well,
He puts on a collar and a tie and goes and makes deodorant.
Funny story about that. My dad was actually not very corporate. My dad was kind of like rock and roller. He managed a rock band, and he came back from Vietnam. He served in Vietnam. He was working at a sheet metal plant in Norwood, and somebody told him P&G was hiring. He said, John, you should go down and apply, see what you can get. He was actually on his way down to downtown Cincinnati to take the fireman's exam, the civil service test, because he was going to try to get on the fire department. And somebody told him, you should go apply at Procter & Gamble. And he got on, and they basically told him, hey, keep your nose clean and get through your first year without any problems. You'll probably have a job for life. So he met my mom at Procter & Gamble. Dad worked
Was she in the deodorant aisle as well?
No, she worked. So my grandfather actually worked in packaging and helped develop the original Pert bottle.
No way.
And so my mother got a job there, and she worked down in the dyes area. So when my dad would have to make a product, if we wanted to make the deodorant blue or whatever, he'd go down and he'd see my mom Carla at the dye counter. That's how they met at P&G. And then he worked. So the funny story about him not being corporate is, my dad used to have long hair. He was a rocker.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And my mom was like, John, if you're ever going to get promoted here, you should really cut your hair. And he, no, I'm not going to cut my hair. So after about a year, he was sick of not being. Yeah, he cuts his hair within 3 weeks. They're like, hey, John, you ever think about working in antiperspirant deodorant? At the time, he was working Jif peanut butter, the Crest toothpaste line, or something. But to his credit, and one of the coolest things about my dad was, My dad actually left Coleraine High School prior to graduating to enlist in the Army.
Wow.
So he went off to Vietnam. He actually got his GED while he was in the Army. So that was like the only like formal education that he ended up with. And so he traveled this path through P&G, and at the end of his career, he was the senior formulator for antiperspirant deodorant at P&G. And like there were new hires coming in from Purdue and Rose-Hulman who were engineers, and he was teaching them how to do their job.
way.
It was back in the day where you learned everything on the job. And at his retirement party, there were people that coming up to me with like PhDs and stuff, and they're like, "You have no idea how smart your dad is. He's great." And I was like, "Wow, I didn't realize he was this like big a deal," because he never let on. He never told us anything. He's like, "I make deodorant."
Yeah.
He downplayed everything. He's like, "I'm a lab tech. I'm a lab technician."
Some of the greatest people that have like had some of the greatest accomplishments are, and like when people really know their stuff.
Yeah.
They're some of the most humble, down to earth people.
Yeah, my at his retirement party, I called him a lab technician because that's what he always called himself. I'm a lab tech, and I said that in front of somebody, and they're like, "Your dad is not a lab technician. he's pretty good at what he does." And I was like, "Ooh, okay. I didn't realize he was a big deal or whatever." But yeah, so and I was lucky, I was lucky enough to have a stay-at-home mom.
Awesome.
At home, and I was a high energy kid.
I would
a big
love
help.
for America for that to get back to being a norm.
It would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
If we didn't need two incomes to like make things work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if we could get rid of so much taxes and inflation, and you just could not have to do that.
Yeah. Having kids now, you don't realize like how lucky we were to have mom at the house when we got off the bus.
Yeah.
Pulling into the driveway, or mom with us all summer and things like that.
And a peaceful mom that she wasn't running home from work and trying to then do another job of taking care of the family and it's just like the atmosphere in the home is completely different.
It was great. It was great.
Yeah.
It was a great childhood in the house. It was a great childhood in Bright.
So did your parents grow up in Bright then, or they moved?
No, Dad went to Coleraine, Mom went to Oak Hills.
Okay.
And then when they got together, they moved out here. They bought a house in like 1978. I came around in 1980.
Okay.
So that's how that worked.
So that was back before. That was when Bright was like Manchester. From what I hear.
Yeah. So the road. I grew up off of Georgetown Road, and my street was
Where at on Georgetown?
top of Georgetown, like Meadow Ridge Drive.
Okay. Yeah.
So my street was actually a gravel road until like I was 17, like my junior year of high school.
Okay. Yeah.
Whenever you'd wash your car, you'd have to like creep up the road real slow to not get dust and crap all over. Because by the time you got to the top of the road, your car would be dirty again. So you'd like lope up the road in first gear, try not to kick dust all over your cleanly washed car. So yeah, but I mean, it was much more rural. In fact, when I was a kid, my address was Rural Route 2. It was like Meadow Ridge Drive, Rural Route 2. Lawrenceburg, Indiana. We didn't even have house numbers yet until like 911 came in.
Really?
Yeah, we didn't have addresses. It was just Rural Route 2. There was so few people out here that it was like, well, there can't be that many people with that last name, and that's all it was.
That is nuts.
Yeah.
That is nuts. So graduating high school, you went off to college where?
I actually started off at University of Evansville.
Okay.
Completed my freshman year there. I got a job at DHL loading planes, third shift, in between my freshman and sophomore year of college. So I was out there in the belly of planes at night, third shift, loading boxes. But I'm also talking to these pilots. And these pilots all seem pretty young. I was under the impression, like, I'm sure all the guys that fly these planes, they're like ex-military.
Yeah, like
guys.
40s or 50s.
Yeah, and I'm seeing guys that are like 28, 29, 30. I'm like,
really?
Yeah, so I start talking to these pilots, and they're like, you can go to school to be a pilot. You don't have to like be in the military. Blew my mind.
Really?
So immediately, like we had already started the process of going back to University of Evansville for my sophomore year, and I ran home and I was like, guys, I want to be a pilot. I want to go to school to be a pilot. Of course, like driving my parents nuts because they're like, we already paid your first semester at Evansville. I'm like, can we get it back? And they're like, where are you going to go? I'm like, well, there's Indiana State and there's Purdue. I said, Purdue's more expensive and it's farther away. I was like, let's try Indiana State. And they're like, okay. So I like transferred to Indiana State right before school started my sophomore year, and I was a pro pilot major. And so I flew airplanes and got my pilot's license. And
no way.
Yeah. And then my junior year, 9/11 happened.
Oh, wow.
And the whole airline industry went in the tank. Nobody was hiring. My flight instructor, his father was a captain at US Air back when US Air existed.
Yeah.
And this guy, like, he had the platinum resume. he had all the hours because he had access to all his dad's stuff. They would go to the simulators down in Texas and they would do all the things. He couldn't get a job. And
That's bad.
Yeah, and I was like, if this guy can't get a job, what am I going to do? So several of us in the pilot major, we started going to our advisors going, I don't think this is going to work right now, and we're going to have student loans and stuff to start paying off. What's the quickest route out of school? And they looked at the classes and they said, well, you can leave with a communications degree, pick a minor, whatever. So
it's like the lowest.
It was, so I was going to be a pilot, and I ended up with a communications degree and a minor in journalism. So at the end of the day, I graduated college, and I was like, well, I can speak and write, I guess. And isn't that the goal? So.
My goodness.
Yeah. Might be.
So, have you still kept up your pilot's license?
No. It's expensive. Flight time's expensive. Renting a plane is expensive. The fuel is expensive. So I mean, I would have to go and get like recertified and everything to do it. And to be honest, it's a really expensive hobby if you're going to make it a hobby. If you're not making money doing it, I don't know if it's really worth it. Yeah. And my wife won't let me. I have enough hobbies.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So out of school, what did you do coming out of college then? Did you move back to Bright?
Oh yeah, immediately.
Okay.
I moved back. I bought a condo back in South Point, back behind the Shell station on State Line.
Okay.
And then after about a year, my parents were actually in an auto accident. I lost both my parents at the same time when I was 25. I never told you that, did I?
No, I'm sorry to hear that, man.
Yeah. So jokingly, I always said to my parents, if you guys ever sell this house, I would love to buy this house because I love it here. I love being on the end of the street. I love having the property back behind us. Like I love it here. And they would always say, you don't want this house. Build a new house. You don't want a 1978 bi-level, right? I love it.
My first house was bi-level. I loved it.
Right. So when the accident happened,
it's like you never had to go upstairs or down here. You could like hang out in between.
Right. Which is honestly the biggest waste of space ever in a house.
I know.
I do hate the design now. I love my house, love the yard, love the neighbors, love where I live, but I do look at the house sometimes and I'm like, yeah, if I could bulldoze this and build a modern floor plan, I'm sure everybody in my house would be super appreciative of it. But when the accident happened, and I've got a younger sister, Courtney. She went to IU. So she was up in Bloomington actually at the time, and I asked her, like, do you have any interest in our childhood home? And she did not. Did not plan on moving home, still hasn't moved home. She still lives up in like Bedford, Indiana. So I went ahead and I bought the house, and I actually live in the house that I grew up in.
Wow.
How much more homegrown does it get?
Yeah, I know.
I live in the house that I grew up in. I'm raising my children.
Since 1978, the house has been your family.
Yeah. Wow. I'm going to end up with one of those Indiana homestead signs. I don't want to farm. If I could just get my kids and like maybe their kids to live there.
Well, you can put solar panels in the backyard. It can be a solar farm, and then you get the homestead exemption.
Let's
Whatever it takes to get a tax break,
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. So what did you do? So you moved back, and what was your first job moving back?
I actually worked at radio stations down in Cincinnati. I got a marketing job down there doing airtime for, it was like B105, Q102, New Rock 97.3. That was a station back in the day. It's probably before your time.
Yeah.
And then oldies, WGRR 103.5. So I worked in radio. I actually worked at Eagle Radio in Lawrenceburg.
What did you do for them?
Same thing, like marketing and sales.
Okay.
Yeah. I bounced around through a lot of different things, and I always got shoehorned into some kind of sales job because they're like, oh, you can talk to people. And I'm like, I don't want to be in sales. That's never been what I wanted to do. And frankly, like, I don't think I had to go to school and get a degree to have a sales job. That's not something I was ever interested in. But everywhere I went.
You had to go to school to get the college debt so that you had to have a sales job to pay it off.
That's right. So I skipped. I was in senior care for a while. I would help transition people and their families, like, if they got to move a family member into a new campus or into senior living, to like help them get acclimated to the new stuff. I was a social director, so I would set up all the ancillary care stuff for the people in the senior center, setting up like eye appointments and podiatry and dental and all this stuff. And I would have care plan meetings with the families but everything I've always done has been client facing. Right. Okay. And at some point I was like, I don't think this is the way. This isn't where I want to go. I had a couple friends that worked at a local financial.
This is all in your 20s still?
No, this is like getting into my 30s now.
Okay.
I'm like getting into my 30s and I'm like, I don't think I'm really on track to
Were you doing any other part-time stuff, volunteer stuff at that point, or?
I mean, I volunteered on the Bright Fire Department. There was a span that I tried to actually do my own lawn care business.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like, I got a trailer and gas powered everything. Like I got a big mower. I'll go out and mow yards. I did that for about 2 years on the side, just make some extra income.
Yeah.
But at some point, I was like, you know what? I got a couple friends that work at this local financial company, and nobody ever says anything bad about it. They all seem to really like working there. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take a chance on myself. I'm going to completely switch industries and take a pretty sizable pay cut to try and get in the bottom floor at this company because there's so much more room for growth.
Yeah.
There's so many more positions available. And that's what I did. And it's actually, I've been there for 5 years last Sunday, and it's worked out really, really well. So now
congratulations.
Thanks. So yeah, now I'm a communications consultant at a financial company.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What all went into doing that? Did you have to do any more college or?
Didn't have to go back to college, but I had to get my Series 7, my financial license.
What's that mean?
It's the test that you take to become a trader. So if you actually look, there's a website that FINRA, the organization, the organizing body, uses. It's called brokercheck.com. You can type my name into BrokerCheck, and you'll see that I come up, and you'll see what licenses and stuff that I have. But I needed that to like get in at the ground floor so I could help people make trades, transact money. But then at some point, I wanted to move up within the company,
right.
And I went from working with individuals that wanted to move their personal funds around. Now I actually work with companies, and I probably shouldn't like name the names of the companies.
Yeah, that's fine. Leave those off.
Yeah, we won't talk about that. But yeah, I work with like some pretty major like American companies now,
Wow.
and we take care of like all their 401k work, and it's really great. It's
cool.
really cool. Yeah, kind of a sideways route to get to where I am.
So what made you decide to jump into getting involved in local government? Did you ever have any aspirations for? Well, let me back up for this. It's interesting to me to see people who are getting involved in local government. They have usually some set of principles, and it's always it's curious to me whenever I ask people like, when did you start paying attention to what was going on politically? Because there's some people that I talk to that this was like somebody I interviewed a couple years ago. They're like, dude, I didn't pay attention to politics until I was like in my early 30s. Like I voted, but I couldn't have told you anything. And I would talk politics with my parents, but I don't know if my parents were Democrats or Republicans. Like that was their story. They didn't start paying attention to really. And they're people that I enjoy talking with.
Yeah.
They have a really good understanding. They've got a good head on their shoulders, and they can debate the issues well. And they've got opinions.
Yeah.
And you think about that, you're like, well, you probably always had these opinions or something. Like, when did you start paying attention to politics?
So I feel like I always paid attention to politics because it was something that was always discussed in our family. And so like I remember, so my parents were
like
Republicans.
Dinner table?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
So my parents were Republicans. My father's parents were Democrats, old school, like Kennedy.
So not
Democrats.
not a big divide.
No, but it's funny because when I was a kid,
It wasn't like Christmas with the woke and the hardcore right wing.
Nobody was uninvited to Christmas because they voted for somebody else or anything like that. It wasn't like that back then, And the fun thing was, when we would have a Thanksgiving dinner or something like that at my grandma's house, we would all sit around the table, and like I got to sit at the adult table. We didn't have a kids table. I got a pretty small family.
Yeah.
So I got to sit at the table with the adults while they were discussing adult topics. And they didn't, it's not they didn't filter it, but they never talked to me like I was a kid. Like if I had questions, I would ask questions and they would just explain what was going on. It was never like, you're too young, don't worry about this yet. They would explain.
So Clinton was president when you were starting to really pay attention to what was going on? You were born in 1980?
Reagan. I started out with Reagan.
Yeah, but you weren't paying attention to president when you were having your diaper changed at 2.
No, I mean Clinton was getting into office like when I was in high school.
Yeah, high school. Okay.
Yeah, high school. But yes, like George Bush. Like I remember the first Operation Desert Storm. I remember sitting on the living room floor at like 11 o'clock at night, watching all those green tracers fired into the air when we were starting to invade Iraq.
Wow.
Like I do remember all those things. But I was always interested in politics, like international relations and things like that. Like what our relations were with different countries and why, stuff like that.
Not really paying attention to county government though.
No.
Right.
And then, like, what was the turning point? I think the fact that my area started getting so many projects that seemed to be like railroaded through, like under the cover of night, like where people weren't finding out about things until the 11th hour. And then it's like, and then in the 11th hour, we find out, oh, there's a plan to develop this, or there's a plan to build this, which most people don't want. And then the town goes crazy, the area gets upset, and then
I don't think I've ever met a group of people. It's like there's this team within a team of an alliance of stuff in Bright that is like, we don't want overdevelopment.
Right.
I mean, obviously there's more houses.
I'll
there
take that as a
or whatever
compliment.
else.
I'm
I know. I grew up in Aurora, and like we were like, oh, cool, another house is being built. That's awesome. And you go to Bright, and they're like, no more. We like fix the pothole. We got enough people here.
That's enough, right?
It's a nice area.
We've got a skyline. We're good.
Yeah, you're good.
We're good.
As long as you got skyline, everything's okay.
Yeah. But it just really got to the point where it's like, wow, they're always trying to like do things, and it feels like they don't want us to know about what they're trying to do until it's too late. They don't want our opinion. They don't want to. I mean, the way this usually works is we find out something's happening at the very last minute.
Yeah.
Then it's torches and pitchforks online, all over the place. Then the organizing body who's trying to put the project together says, okay, we want to hear public sentiment. We want to get everybody's opinion. We'll have a meeting next Tuesday at 10 a.m. And it's like, okay, like, could you put it at a time where you could make it more obvious that you don't want to hear anybody's opinion? But that's not how Bright rolls. I mean, people will take off of work to show up to these meetings, and they'll pack the house. So even though they try to keep us out, like it doesn't work. Like we get heard from anyway.
My first two experiences with Bright and the topic of development was the North Dearborn or the Bright Elementary School gym, whichever it was.
Okay.
There was a conversation about, I think, a TIF going in up there.
Okay.
And I don't remember if it went through or not, but I just remember walking in going, Tuesday night, weather's cold, there's probably like 50 people, and there was 250 people in that gym.
Right.
And like people standing up along the walls, and I'm like, that's cool. Just that people are actually care about an issue.
Yeah.
And then I think the other one was when they were talking about doing the car road development. And
Yeah.
I'm like, there is no room in this. Like that Henry Dearborn room got hot. I'm like, the AC was having trouble
keeping up.
Or I don't know if they had AC or I think it was a winter time. So I don't know, they turned the heat off and it was still getting hot in there. It was warm. So
Bright is this like Bright and Hidden Valley is a special area. It's like this little enclave that we have carved out, and it's rural enough to keep up like quality of life. Right. You want your kids to be able to ride their bikes through your subdivision and stuff. Right. You would like to think you have neighbors, you keep doors unlocked and things like that. And I think we're kind of defensive of it. We are 20 minutes from Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Cincinnati's kind of a big little town. We got all the things, all the sports, the museums, all the concerts, all the stuff. But then 20 minutes out of there, and we live where we live, and there's lightning bugs, and you can see the stars at night. And like, I think we want to try to protect that. The people that grew up there, like me, they don't want to see it change, and the people that have moved here from other areas moved there for that reason.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't like that where they came from, and that's what they wanted.
Right.
And I think we're all trying to protect that as best we can.
Everything's, you got conservative values, and there's just different things at a local level that you're trying to conserve that you don't think about, at a federal level. People think conservative. They think moral issues, social issues, the border, foreign policy, constitutional values. Then you talk to a conservative around here, and it's like, well, there's a whole lot more to that. Let me tell you about local stuff we're trying to conserve. So it's always interesting. So what was the tipping point that made you really decide to get involved, or why run for Miller Township trustee?
Well, first off, nothing against the current trustee, but she's been in the position for 16 years. Okay, so that was the first thing that made me think about jumping into this. Also, she was running unopposed. She has run opposed at points during this, but a lot of times, and including I think her first time coming in, she came in unopposed. So one of the things I was starting to look at was like, wow, even though we have elections, that doesn't mean we really have choices.
Yeah.
A lot of times people will be the only person running for the position.
Yeah.
And it's like, why am I even voting then? All these people are just.
I don't know why we're spending the money on the election if we're just going to have one person on the
We're
ballot.
just going to have one person anyway. We're going to get who we get. So I wanted to put my name out there to give people a choice, which is nerve-wracking, by the way. You're
talking to somebody who's lost 6 elections, and I got kicked off the ballot the 7th time. I know about nerve-wracking.
Okay.
I
So you know
hear
what
where
I'm
you're
saying.
coming from. Yeah.
But like literally a couple of weeks ago, I went out and I put my first yard sign out in somebody's yard, and it feels weird because you're like, man, I'm sticking my name out for everybody to see. I'm like, not everybody likes me. I know that. And those people are you're gonna hear from them. Like I know they're gonna stand up and start shouting things, and so it's a little nerve wracking, but yeah, I wanted to have another choice, and I wanted the ability to try to give access of information to people, to my neighbors, to the people that live where we live. Like I was saying before, so many of these things like come in under the shadow of night, and we find out about it at the last minute. I feel like having my foot in the door at the lowest level, like at a township trustee,
right.
Which, I mean, let's be honest, like the duties of a township trustee are like minor financial stuff. I've got my Series 7. I think I can handle that. Like keeping the weeds down.
Right.
Like making sure that properties don't become overgrown, things like that. Cemetery upkeep, like local cemetery upkeep, which credit to the current trustee, we have had a couple of historic cemeteries that have been like refurbished. They're very nice.
Yeah.
They're very nice now. So I know for a fact that she did that. But yeah, I feel like I can get my foot in the door at this lower level position that I'm absolutely qualified to do. I can break up a run of a person holding the same position for what will be 20 years if she wins the election on May 5th. And I also want to be able to give the people that live around me insight as to what's going on. I want everything to be an open book instead of like some kind of like closeted plan. I want everybody to know these are the projects that are being talked about. Like, has anybody ever seen the notes from a Miller Township trustee meeting? I haven't. Does anybody know what the projects are? What money is being spent on? How much? Anything like that? No.
Yeah.
I want to lay all that stuff out. I want to put meeting minutes out there. I want people to know what's going on.
The first township trustee meeting I attended, somebody on the board had asked me to attend with the intent in mind of, Sam, we're looking for somebody to take this over. You should come to this meeting to see what it is, and maybe think about taking over being a township trustee.
Oh, really?
And I said, I will no promises, but I'll come. And I went to this. It's where I used to vote when we had individual precincts. Now we just have like 12 locations. And so I went up to this place, and it used to be, I think at one point it was the county seat when they were rebuilding the courthouse, or they were changing. So like the judges were up there. Then it was a school. So like the floors are dipping. My voting booth is in there, and we go in and vote there. So this is like my 4th or 5th time in this building.
Yeah.
It's this old historic, white building. It was a church for a while, and I'm sitting there, and they're going through paperwork and going through things. I'm going, I didn't even know we had a township trustee. I didn't even know this board existed.
Yeah.
And you get an insight.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there going, it would be there's some really great people who've been on those boards and been trustees, and it's not a glamorous job. And I think we should probably give more thanks to the people who have been doing that. But a lot of those people are older people because they've understood the importance of that government. Mm-hmm. And people in our generation were off doing other things. Right. Somebody else was taking care of it, and they were doing a good job. So we never thought about it. It's right. Like the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and the squeaky wheel was the federal government.
Right.
And some of the stuff in our own backyard, you've got good people that just run stuff that you never hear about it. And so out of sight, out of mind. And I remember sitting there going, somebody should like video this meeting so that everybody else, because who has time to come on like a Thursday night or whatever it was. And I was like, I wish I would have known about this a long time ago. This is really interesting. Yeah. So I can definitely relate with that. Yeah. So
I actually started to notice when I started going back and looking through things and who's run opposed and unopposed and who was on the ballot at what time. It's like a lot of the same people are on the ballots like every year. Yeah. Every year. And the board members are the same, and all the last names that you see are the same all the time for all these different positions. And it's like at some point we have to get some new blood into these positions. I mean, it's getting to the point now where it's like generational. There's like the second generation of people with the same last names on the ballots, and it's like at some point, are we gonna get some
Freshen up the water?
fresh? I mean, I'm 46. I'm 46. Is it my turn yet? Can I?
Yeah.
Can I play? Am I allowed to? Am I allowed to have a seat at the table?
No, go sit at the table. Go sit in your chair.
Shut up and eat your mashed potatoes.
We'll invite you when we want to appoint you someplace.
Right,
That's what it is. So
I feel like it's time.
gotcha.
It's time.
Cool.
My kids are 11 and 8. They're not toddlers or anything anymore. Like they're a little more self-sufficient now. I feel like I have the time to get back into things. I enjoyed being on the fire department. I like serving the community. Like I like the feeling of doing that kind of thing. Like I feel like I'm kind of like I got a servant's heart.
Yeah.
Like I worked with seniors and senior care. Now I try to help people with their finances. Like I enjoy helping my neighbors and things like that. And I want to keep our area the way that it is and make it better, but like make it better in the right ways.
Right.
Make it better in the right ways that the people who live there would like to see done.
Yeah.
Versus having things that they don't want to see shoved down our throats.
So townships they're not redevelopment boards, they're not plan commissions, they're not county council, et cetera. Right. But what, just hitting off the topic of development or overdevelopment, is there anything you can do on a township level or a trustee level that affects development?
Well, recently one of the projects that have been discussed and tried to be pushed through was a fire district for our fire department. I love our fire department. Our fire department is actually really cool, and it has a really great history of serving the town. But one of the things that was proposed was a 12 to 14% property tax hike on homes within a certain property value. And it was kind of bizarre the way that it was set up, because I believe, if I'm correct, if I'm not correct, I'm sure somebody will let me know. But
they always do.
That's how the internet works. But I believe, over a certain value, your taxes were not affected. So it was like, well, this is odd. You're really raising the property taxes of everybody that's like the middle and lower class instead of some of the more valuable things. So that was like a little bizarre, but I didn't like the fact that this type of thing was being pushed through, again, without any type of opinion or voice from the people. Like these things were kind of tried to push through in secrecy. Like anything that transparency is always a good thing, right? More transparency is never a bad thing.
Sunshine is the best remedy.
Right, that's right. The best killer of the viruses, the sunshine. So anything that is anything they try to push through without really telling anything about it, immediately red flags go up, and I'm like, what is this all about? So
how does a fire district affect development?
Quite honestly, I feel like the fire department staying a volunteer fire department is one of the last stopgaps between how we are right now and overdevelopment. Because anytime something gets talked about, anytime they talk about the car road development, anytime they talk about new subdivisions, things like that going in, one of the big items that always pops up is, well, they don't really have the infrastructure to support this.
What infrastructure? Fire?
Right. Like fire, police, schools, possibly water. Like I think they were just doing a study to see, well, if they put in all these subdivisions, is our water company even able to provide water to all these new homes? Is there enough pressure in the system? So they were doing studies, things like that. But our infrastructure, water, fire, things like that, those are one of the things that is kind of a speed bump between being bright like we know it and getting a lot more development. And so I'll just say, I don't want I don't want the fire department to be a full-time fire department. I want it to be the best volunteer fire department that it can be. I want them to have great equipment. I want them to be fully staffed with enough members to get the job done. I want Station 3 out on North Dearborn Road to be run out of. I want everything to be active and functioning as it should. and I think that'd be the best quality of life for us. The fire department operating at like max capacity and limiting the development in our area to try to keep it the way it is.
Gotcha. So you'd mentioned earlier before we got started that you grew up in Bright. You're raising your family in Bright. You hope your kids settle in Bright. When you think about, everybody talks about this topic of like growth, and I got a 18-month-old son that we kissed goodnight right before I came down here. We started this podcast,
Right.
and I'm interested in him going from 20 pounds to 25 to 30 pounds to he can grow 10%. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to stay around 200, and when I get like 215 and then 220, I'm like, dude, I just put on 10%, and that does not look good. I feel it.
Right.
And so at some point, being healthy and thriving and growing isn't necessarily about me getting bigger,
Right.
so to speak. When you look at the strengths of Southeast Indiana, Dearborn County, Bright Hidden Valley are kind of the forefront of that as far as getting off that exit. Greendale,
We're kind of the front line that you get.
yeah,
to,
you got Lawrenceburg, Greendale, Bright Hidden Valley. That's the four kind of communities that border that section. And as you see things grow, what do you hope is still here in 20 years? If you hope your kids are then buying a house, like you bought a house near your parents.
Yeah.
And hopefully your grandkids are, within 5-minute drive,
Right.
and you got dinner with the family once or twice a week,
Right.
What do you hope is still, what are the top 2 or 3 things that you hope maintain or that feel of the community you grew up in?
I want people to have space to live, right? There used to be, I believe there used to be some type of, I don't know if it's an ordinance. I'm not a government person. I don't know the words for everything, but there used to, I believe there used to be some type of.
You figure it out as you go, right? That's what our founders did. They're like, I would figure it out as I go.
I've done it with literally everything I've ever done. I'll figure it out as I go. I promise. But there used to be something set up where I believed like any new homes built in a certain area, like they were supposed to be built on at least an acre of land. It's like, all right, well, that's good. Like people have space. They're not staring into each other's windows, seeing what the other person's making for dinner.
Yeah.
And then you have like, I believe things were completely rezoned for that Carr Road project, which was going to allow them to just stack little homes on top of each other all throughout this small plot of land. I mean, it's going to be like a trailer park. I don't want to see it turned into that. I know people that have lived in Hidden Valley their whole lives, and they have seen what overdevelopment in Hidden Valley has turned Hidden Valley into. Hidden Valley is still a great place to live, but they've got their own issues. They've got issues with like the water system there that fails sometimes. I don't believe that their infrastructure was built for the number of homes that they currently have, and so they're dealing with some growing pains. But I know that the people in Hidden Valley probably think that they're at max capacity, and they don't want to see a new home pop up in between every existing home. So I want people to have space to live, right? I want us to still have great schools. We have great schools. My kids go to Bright Elementary. My daughter's going to be going to the middle school next year. So that's, I feel like.
Growing up.
Dude, you don't even know. Like yesterday, I feel like we brought her home in a car seat. But yeah, like our schools are great. Like I went to East Central. I have like total like school pride for our area, and my boys playing Pee Wee football now, and it's awesome to watch. I enjoy that team and the parents and the coaches, like the whole environment. Like there's not a lot about our area that I don't really love, right? Like I love our schools. I love my old high school. As cheesy as it is, like I know I don't know if there's like a ton of school spirit anymore, but like I have a ton of school spirit for my high school. Like still, I love it. And I don't want to see all the great things about our area destroyed by people who just want more, right? Yeah. Like the place is great the way that it is. It really is. And I don't really subscribe to this idea where, well, it's progress. It's progress. It has to get bigger. You have to shove. Why? Why do you have to do that? And why can't you say this area is great the way that it is, and we want it to stay that way? And why is the fact that there aren't enough homes for everybody that wants to live out here, why is that a problem? Is
Yeah,
it?
scarcity creates value.
Right.
I don't want. Yeah, I'm with you. I
Right?
agree. If you need to move, hey, move out to Ripley or Franklin or Ohio County, and you got to have a drive further.
There are other places.
That's where we did. I
Yeah.
mean, we bought it. We started renting down a Rising Sun because it was a little bit cheaper.
Yep.
And we bought a foreclosed home in Aurora next to the railroad tracks underneath the overpass. It was not anything fancy, but that was our starter home.
Right.
You know. And then we bought another house. And we sold that one and moved, and then we've moved again. And
Right.
you know, it's like I think a lot of that. My frustration. I'm a millennial. You're Gen X.
Yep.
You know the difference there, but for me, it's that.
I'm so glad you said that, by the way.
Oh, I know. It's
I'm so because apparently, like according to the books, like I'm Gen X by like a year.
Oh, really?
And there are people that are like, "Oh, you're a millennial too." I'm like, no, I'm not. I was raised far too feral to be a millennial.
Well, so for me, but it's like, well, you know, our kids have to have a job when they get out of high school or college. I'm like, one of the so I started a business at a young age, and nobody provided for me. I went out and created something for myself.
Right.
And then these other people are like, well, I graduated. Where's my job? I'm like, the job doesn't exist for you. You have to go create value to the economy, and somebody goes, yeah, we want you here.
Right.
It's not like the companies exist to give you a job.
Right. You have to make yourself the puzzle piece that fits into their
Agreed.
plan. Right.
And one of my biggest frustrations when I started getting involved with county government is seeing what was going on. It was like, well, you know, the government's got to create more jobs for the people that are here. I'm like, the government doesn't do that. The government needs to be fiscally responsibly run and stay the heck out of our lives.
Right.
And protect the quality of life that we have.
Right.
I don't
force
want,
our borders, make sure the water's clean, and
yeah,
that's all we
hasta la
need.
vista, you know.
Yeah.
So, what would you say to anybody else who's kind of on the fence? Maybe you go back to you just 6 months, a year ago, 3 years ago, whenever you decided, hey, I want to get involved. What would you tell that person who's maybe on the fence watching this, thinking, hey, you know, did I get involved? I've thought about getting involved. What would you tell them?
I would say to do it. I mean, it's nerve wracking. It's like if you think I'm sitting here and I'm not nervous about this election coming up, like I am nervous about it. And on one hand, I kind of think like, why? Like if I don't win, like my life doesn't change.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, I think, yeah, absolutely it will. It'll change for the worse, and it might change for the worse for everybody that lives in our area. So like I feel like there's the weight of that hanging on this election.
Gotta love the pressure.
It is, right? Especially if you feel really passionate about something. Like, I don't want to like overblow this, but I kind of feel like I'm trying to save the area. I'm trying to save the town. And I'm trying to do it by sticking my toe into a position that isn't even necessarily the position to be able to do all the things that I want to do. But it's going to give us access. Right? And it's going to give us information, and I want to be able to at least apply that. And then if that goes well, then who knows, maybe eventually, God, I don't want to really run for another position, but this has been enough. But I mean, maybe down the road, like something opens up and we can do something to protect the area that we live in. So
cool. Anything else you want to cover? Anything else you want to talk about?
The only thing that I would say, should I look at the camera when I'm talking about it? The only thing that I would say...
I'm not really a professional. I've just done this a couple times.
All right, cool. Well, this is my first. So the only thing that I would say is that I think there are a lot of people that don't vote in primary elections. They don't vote in May because they're like, well, you know, I don't have time for this, and I'm going to vote in the general election in November.
Which is a complete waste.
Well, right, because what happens is... you know, there are no Democrats, unfortunately. I think it is unfortunate. I wish everybody ran for every position.
Right.
But there's only 2 people running for Miller Township trustee. And whoever wins the election on May 5th, they're going to be the only person on the ballot come November. So the election is not in November for this position. So like I would just plead to people in the Miller Township and the southern part of Bright, Hidden Valley area, to please go out. You know, the polling, one of the major polling stations there is in the basement of Willie's, right there in Hidden Valley. Like it's not far away. So I would just really like to ask people to just get out. If you'd like to see some new blood in the position, try to vote on May 5th, because by November it's really not gonna not gonna mean anything.
I would agree with that. Cool.
I think that's it.
Well, what's the great way for people to get a hold of you or get in touch if they want to put out a yard sign or do something?
Put out a yard sign. I have like 5 signs left, people. I don't have fundraisers or party backing. I bought 50 yard signs, and I think I have maybe 5 left.
All right, so you got like a Facebook page, share,
yes,
phone number.
Yeah, if you want to look me up on Facebook, you can just look my name up, Kyle Luebbe, Luebbe. You can look me up if you want to look at my Township Trustee page. It's just Kyle Luebbe for Miller Township Trustee. You can search that out too. Be happy to have you follow it, like it, and then down the road, should this all work out, I plan on using that group to try to put out information for everybody as well. So if this works out like we hope it does, then hopefully that group will turn into a kind of haven for local information about the things that are going on in the area, and we can just keep building that.
Kyle, thanks for coming on Time with Uncle Sam, and signing off from the great state of Indiana, where all the women are strong, all the men are good looking, and all the children are above average. See you guys.